I was 9 years old when I saw my mother's blood pool across the kitchen floor. It was a Wednesday night, and I stood frozen, too small to do anything but stare. That's when I learned monsters don't lurk under beds or in dark forests. They can live in your house, call you by name, and still tear your world apart. My name's Ruth Harper, now 76, living quietly in Willow Creek, a sleepy little town in rural Kentucky. To the folks around here, I'm just the old lady selling apple pies at the Sunday farmers market, always with a warm smile and a quick joke. But if you catch my eyes, you might see a shadow that doesn't match the grin. It's the kind of shadow that comes from a life stitched together from broken pieces. I've carried this story for decades, and sharing it feels like opening an old wound, so bear with me. Drop a comment below. Tell me where you're reading from. Knowing someone's out there listening makes this a little easier. Our house sat a couple miles down a gravel road that turned to sludge when it rained. It was a plain wooden place, weathered grey, with a tin roof that leaked like a sieve during storms. The yard was a jungle of tall grass, dotted with apple trees, a few scrappy chickens, and our old hound, Rusty, who'd bark at a leaf falling. We were your typical small-town family, me, my little brother Tommy, 2 years younger, my mom, Eleanor, and my dad, William. Dad worked long hours at the sawmill, coming home smelling of pine and exhaustion. Mom was the glue, keeping the house running, tending the garden, and taking in laundry to make ends meet. Her hands were rough as sandpaper from work, but at night they'd brush my hair with a softness that could hush the world. Things were good until I was about 7. That's when Dad started getting headaches, vicious ones, like a hammer smashing inside his skull. He'd snap at the smallest noise, his temper flaring like a match. Mum begged him to see a doctor, but he'd wave her off, saying it was just stress. It'd pass. It didn't. The headaches got worse, and something darker came with them. Dad started having what Mum called spells. Out of nowhere he'd shake like a leaf, eyes rolling back, muttering nonsense. Sometimes he'd turn violent, smashing plates or punching walls until his hands bled. Our neighbour, Mrs. Carter, who lived a quarter-mile down the road, said it sounded like epilepsy. Her uncle had it, needed steady meds. Mum finally dragged Dad to a clinic in town after he nearly burned the house down, swearing bugs were crawling everywhere. The doctor gave him pills, but they were pricey, and Dad hated how they dulled him. He'd skip doses, claiming they made him feel like half a man. Mum tried slipping the meds into his coffee once. Big mistake. He caught on, roared, "You trying to poison me?" and flipped the table, sending dishes crashing. Tommy and I would dive under the bed, clinging to each other, hearts pounding. The spells got uglier. Dad started hearing voices, arguing with ghosts in empty rooms. Some days he didn't know us, called Mom by strange names, accused Tommy and me of being strangers in his house. Mum did her best to shield us. When she sensed a spell coming, she'd hustle us to Mrs. Carter's or hide us in the tool shed out back. "Stay quiet," she'd whisper. "Don't make a peep, no matter what." We'd hear it all, screams, glass shattering, Mum's quiet sobs, Dad's wild accusations about her cheating or plotting to kill him. One evening I found her on the back steps, a black eye blooming, her lips split. She covered it with her hand, forced a smile. "Clumsy me, Ruth," bumped the table. I nodded, pretending to buy it because the truth hurt too much. Things spiraled. Dad lost his sawmill job after threatening a co-worker with a wrench during a spell. He started drinking heavily, mixing whiskey with the meds when he bothered to take them. Money dried up. We lived off Mum's laundry work and whatever the garden gave us. One night, as we cleaned up broken dishes from another of Dad's rages, I whispered, "Why don't we leave, Mum?" Her eyes, older than her 32 years, met mine. "Where'd we go, honey? No family, no savings. And your dad, he's not bad, Ruth. It's the sickness. The man I love is still in there somewhere." I wanted to believe her. On rare good days, when the headaches eased and Dad took his meds, we'd see glimpses of the old him. He'd sit on the porch, call us over to watch the sunset, and spin stories about his boyhood, whistling as he fixed a squeaky door. Mum would gaze at him like he was the only thing that mattered, like she could will those moments to last. But those days faded until they were gone. By the time I was 9, the spells were nearly daily. Dad was a storm cloud, suspicious, angry, lost in his head. Then came that Wednesday night, a summer storm pounding the roof like it wanted to tear it off. Tommy and I were in bed, pretending to sleep, but I was wide awake. Dad hated storms, said they made the voices louder. I heard Mum scream, a chair crash. Normal, sadly. I pulled the blanket over Tommy's head as he whimpered. "It'll pass," I lied, but it didn't. Mum's screams grew desperate. "William, please, put it down." Then a sickening sound, like a melon splitting, followed by a wet thud. Silence followed, heavier than the rain. It choked me. Against every instinct I crept out of bed, whispering to Tommy, "Stay here." My bare feet hit the creaky floorboards as I tiptoed to the kitchen. Through a crack in the door I saw it, a scene that's never left me. Mum lay crumpled on the cold floor, blood trickling from her head, pooling beneath her. Dad stood over her, clutching the wooden pestle she used for grinding spices, now stained dark red. His eyes were glassy, distant. "The voices stopped," he said, calm as a still pond. "They're finally gone." I don't know if he saw me. I just ran, grabbed Tommy, and we hid in the closet, trembling until dawn. When the sun rose, the house was too quiet, like it was holding its breath. I heard Dad's footsteps, then his voice. Normal, almost like before. "Ruth, Tommy, come out." For a split second I hoped it was a nightmare, that Mum would be in the kitchen humming over pancakes, but when we stepped out I saw the truth. Dad had wrapped Mum's body in a sheet, the kitchen floor streaked with blood and bleach. "Your dad's sick, but he'll take care of you," he said, like he was someone else. "We don't tell nobody. It was an accident. She slipped. Got it?" Tommy sobbed. Dad gripped his arm hard. "Got it, boy." I pulled Tommy close, nodding fast. "Yes, Daddy, we understand." That morning, under a grey drizzle, Dad dug a hole behind the chicken coop. No coffin, no words, just Mom in that stained sheet buried in the mud. We watched from the window, too numb to cry. Dad told the neighbours Mum went to visit a sick aunt in Louisville. Nobody asked questions. Folks in Willow Creek started steering clear of our house, whispering about Dad's odd spells. Mrs. Carter, our neighbour, offered to take Tommy and me in while Mum was supposedly off visiting her sick aunt, but Dad shut her down fast. "I've got this," he'd say, his voice flat. Life limped along in this eerie, pretend normal way. Dad sent us to school, burned our dinners, nothing like Mum's warm cornbread, and tossed our clothes in the wash like it was a chore he barely tolerated. Some days he almost seemed like his old self, quiet but steady, no outbursts. I later learned he'd ditched his meds entirely and stopped drinking too, like he'd slipped into a different world where none of it had happened. Nights were the worst. Tommy and I would huddle in bed, arms wrapped around each other, but the comfort of knowing Mum was nearby was gone. Instead, we knew she was out back, under the cold, wet dirt, alone. About 2 weeks after that awful night, I heard our bedroom door creak open. Dad often checked if we were asleep, so I played possum, eyes shut, breathing slow. But this time the mattress dipped as he sat on the edge. "So much like her," he whispered, his hand brushing my hair. Same eyes, same face. My heart raced, but I stayed still, praying he'd leave. His hand kept moving, down my cheek, my neck, to places no father should ever touch. Something inside me shattered that night, a piece that time could never fully glue back together. That was the moment I learned the hardest truth. Sometimes the monster isn't just under your roof, it's in your blood. Those nights became a sick routine. I tried locking the door, but he ripped the latch off. I stayed awake until my eyes burned, but sleep always won. I tried to scream once, but his hand, reeking of dirt and sweat, clamped over my mouth. By day, he acted like we were any other family, just missing Mum. Tommy knew something was wrong. His big sister, who'd always been his shield, was crumbling. I'd catch him staring, confused, as I hid my tears or flinched when Dad got too close. I started sending him to Mrs. Carter's whenever I could, making up excuses about chores. At least he'd be safe. School became a blur. My grades tanked, and my teacher, Miss Evans, pulled Dad in for a chat. "Ruth's not herself," she said, all concern. "She used to light up the room, now she's so quiet." Dad played the grieving father perfectly. "It's her mum being gone," he said. "Her aunt's real sick in Louisville. We're all struggling." Miss Evans nodded, bought every word. Who'd suspect a hard-working single dad raising his kids alone? I tried telling Mrs. Carter once, my voice barely a whisper. "Dad, he does things at night, things he shouldn't." She gave me a sad, sceptical look. "Oh, honey, your dad's sick, but he's not that kind of man. You're just mixed up. Maybe saw something in a movie." I never tried again. Who'd believe a scrawny 9-year-old over a grown man? Months dragged on, each day heavier than the last. I stopped eating much, lost weight, woke up from nightmares screaming. If anyone noticed, they looked the other way. One night, when Dad's breath stank of whiskey again and his hands were rougher than ever, I hit my breaking point. I couldn't keep living like this, and I sure as hell couldn't let Tommy face it when he got older. I had to stop the man I once called Dad from destroying what was left of us. While his snores rattled the house, I slipped out of bed. In the kitchen, way back in the cabinet, was a bottle of rat poison with a skull on the label. Mum always kept it out of reach. My hands shook as I held it, the weight of my plan sinking in. I wasn't a kid anymore. That died the night Mum's blood stained the floor. The idea was simple. Dad drank black coffee every morning, strong with heaps of sugar. A pinch of poison would blend right in. Tommy and I could run to town, say he had a spell and collapsed. Everyone knew he was unstable. No one would dig deeper. But as I stood there, bottle in hand, something stopped me. I swear I felt Mom, like a faint whiff of her Sunday church perfume. A voice in my head, maybe hers, maybe my own, whispered, "This ain't the way, baby girl." Fear, conscience, or both, I don't know, but I slid the poison back and crept to bed, tears burning my cheeks. That night wasn't wasted, though. Something fierce woke up inside me, a spark to fight, to outsmart him, to survive. I just had to wait for the right moment, and it came faster than I expected. The next morning, I woke with a clarity I hadn't felt in months. Staring out the kitchen window at the patch of dirt where Mum lay, I knew poison wasn't my answer. That'd make me no better than him, but the truth buried out back. That was my weapon. Sheriff Daniels came by the first Monday of every month, part of some new county program to check on rural families. His next visit was 2 days away. For those 2 days, I played my part like never before. I smiled when Dad spoke, didn't flinch when he got close, cooked his eggs just how he liked. He squinted at me, suspicious. "What's with you, girl?" "Just missing Mum," I said, voice steady. "Thought I'd help out more." He bought it, or maybe it was easier to believe. Those nights when he came to my room, I swallowed my pain and thought of the countdown to freedom. When Sheriff Daniels rode up that Monday on his old chestnut horse, I was ready, waiting by the gate. I'd sent Tommy to Mrs. Carter's, saying we were cleaning the chicken coop. "Morning, Sheriff," I said, forcing a smile. "Dad's home?" he asked. "Still asleep," I replied. "Had a spell last night. Meds knock him out." Then I took a breath, my heart hammering. "Can I show you something? It's a secret, but you gotta see." He raised an eyebrow. "What kind of secret, kid?" "It's about Mum. She didn't go to Louisville. No sick aunt." His face hardened, and he swung off his horse. "What are you saying?" I led him to the backyard, to the mound behind the chicken coop, still visible despite the weeks. I pointed, voice steady, though tears stung my eyes. "Mum's there. Dad killed her. Hit her with a pestle on a rainy night. I saw it." He stared at me, then the dirt, then me again. "That's a big claim, Ruth. You sure? Dig, I said. You'll find her in her favourite flowered sheet with her blue bead necklace. They dug. They found her, her body decayed but unmistakable, the necklace glinting in the dirt. Dad woke to the commotion, ran out yelling about voices that made him do it. He fled, but they caught him 3 days later in a creekside cave, raving. He confessed it all, not just Mum's death, but the nights he stole from me. Some townsfolk wanted to string him up before the police hauled him away. He went to prison and never came back. Years later, I heard he died in a jailhouse brawl after inmates learned what he'd done to his own daughter. I felt nothing, no relief, no grief, just a hollow space where fear and rage used to live. Tommy and I were sent to live with Aunt Maggie, Dad's sister, in Cincinnati. We didn't even know she existed until then. A nurse with no kids, no husband, and a sharp tongue, she took us in like we were her own. Blood's blood, she said, eyeing our small bundles of clothes. Aunt Maggie was a force, wore slacks, drove her own car, and didn't care what anyone thought. Back home, folks called her too modern for not marrying. To me, she was a lifeline. Those first months, nightmares clawed at me. I'd wake screaming, seeing Mum's blood, feeling Dad's hands. Aunt Maggie never flinched. She'd flick on the light, sit on my bed, and stay until my breathing slowed. "What you went through was hell, Ruth," she'd say plainly. "But it's not your whole story. You're bigger than this. One day it'll just be a scar." I didn't believe her at first. How do you move past something so dark? But she kept at it, got me into a good school, found me a therapist, a new word for me, pushed me to try swimming, piano, anything to rebuild. Slowly the nightmares faded. I started smiling, making friends, looking in the mirror without hating myself. Tommy thrived too, racing through Cincinnati streets with new pals, playing baseball, coming home with scraped knees and wild stories. By 15, I knew I wanted to be a teacher. I thought of Miss Evans, who'd seen my pain but didn't know how to help. I wanted to be the one who noticed, who reached out, who made a difference for kids like me suffering in silence. Aunt Maggie was my biggest cheerleader when I told her I wanted to be a teacher. She helped me get into a teaching college, and those years were tough but worth every late-night studying. By 18, I was in front of a classroom full of preschoolers, their bright eyes soaking up every new word or song. Watching them light up felt like a warm balm on the scars I still carried. It was like I was rebuilding my heart, one tiny smile at a time. Life kept moving. Tommy made Aunt Maggie proud, graduating medical school and becoming a paediatrician. He'd grin and say he picked kids because I'd looked out for him when no one else could. I met Jim at a school event, a widower raising his 5-year-old son, Mark, alone. We bonded over parenting struggles, then music and books, and before I knew it, we were grabbing coffee, then dinners. Dating wasn't easy. A man's touch, even a kind one, could pull me back to those awful nights in Kentucky. Jim sensed it, never pushed, always waited. When I finally told him my story, tears in his eyes, he held my hands gently. "That's not you, Ruth," he said. "You're the strongest, kindest woman I know." We got married on a sunny spring Sunday in 1970. I was 24, and for the first time I felt like I was truly living, not just surviving. Jim, Mark and I became a family I never thought I'd have. 3 years later, our daughter Emily arrived, curly-haired, with a smile that could melt ice. Holding her, I made a silent vow. She'd always be safe, always loved, shielded from the monsters I'd known. That promise felt like a shield I could finally hold. The truth I wielded against my father as a kid wasn't the end. It was the start of a long road to healing. Some nights I still saw Mum's blood on the kitchen floor, or felt Dad's weight on my bed. But those memories lost their grip over time, like ghosts fading in the morning light. Real justice wasn't his prison cell or his death. It was me building a life, loving, raising a family, breaking the cycle of pain that could have swallowed me whole. From the ashes of that nightmare, I grew something beautiful. The years rolled on, and life brought its mix of highs and lows. Jim was my rock, helping me trust again, not just in others, but in myself. We had 35 good years until lung cancer took him in 2005. We raised Mark and Emily with the love my mum gave me in her short time and the strength Aunt Maggie showed me later. Mark, Jim's son from his first marriage, became as much mine as if I'd carried him. He grew up to be an engineer, married young, and gave me 3 grandkids who light up my world. Emily took after me, becoming a teacher, but she went bigger. Now she runs a school for underprivileged kids on Cincinnati's outskirts. Tommy's still out there fixing sniffly noses and scraped knees, joking that he's paying me back for all those years I protected him. Even with a full, happy life, I carried a secret that sat heavy in my chest. Only Jim, Aunt Maggie and Tommy knew what happened in that Kentucky house. Not my kids, not my co-workers, no one else. "Why dig up old pain, Ruth?" Aunt Maggie would say when it came up. "The past's done." But it wasn't, not really. The past has a way of sneaking up like an uninvited guest. I was 50, teaching 3rd grade, when it hit me hard. A new kid showed up, skinny, quiet, with faint bruises on his arms. One look at those marks, and I was back in that house, Dad's hands on me. I collapsed right there in class. When I came to in the school nurse's office, I knew I couldn't keep burying it. That scared little girl was still part of me, and pretending otherwise wasn't working. I started therapy with Dr. Sarah, a young psychologist with an old soul. "Trauma doesn't vanish," she said. "It lives in your body, your memories, but we can learn to carry it differently." We dug into the pain I'd shoved down. Anger at Mum for not saving me, at Dad for breaking us, at the world for letting it happen. Dr. Sarah said anger was okay, part of the process, not something to hide. Slowly, I started to see it clearer. Dad was sick, not just cruel. Mum did what she could with what she had, and me, a 9-year-old kid, couldn't have changed it. Forgiveness wasn't a light switch. It came in drips, like rain filling a bucket. I forgave Mum first, then myself. Dad's still a work in progress, even now. At 60, I decided to tell Mark and Emily everything. Emily cried. Mark sat stone still, staring at nothing. Then they hugged me, not like kids, but like adults, shielding someone they love. "Why didn't you tell her?" Emily asked, tears streaming. "I wanted you to grow up free of it," I said, "and maybe I was ashamed, scared you'd see me differently." Mark looked shocked. "Ashamed? Mum, you're a survivor." That word, survivor, stuck with me. I'd always been the victim, the broken one. But survivor, that felt like strength, like a badge I'd earned. After that, I started sharing my story, not to everyone, but to those who needed it. Support groups for women, school talks about spotting abuse, volunteering at shelters for kids from violent homes. Each time I spoke, the weight got lighter, not because I forgot, but because I was giving my pain a purpose. It wasn't just about a girl who suffered. It was about a woman who fought back and helped others do the same. At 70, retired but still volunteering, I got a call that shook me. A journalist wanted to interview survivors for a documentary, and my name came up from a shelter coordinator. My gut said no. Sharing in small groups was one thing, but cameras, strangers, that felt too big. But then I thought of the kids out there, trapped like I was, and the adults still carrying silent scars. I had to do it. That night I talked to Jim, like I still do sometimes. "It's time," I told him. The interview was brutal, reliving every detail under bright lights, cameras rolling. But when it was over, I felt lighter, like I'd shed a coat I'd worn too long. The documentary, Voices of Silence, hit hard, shown in schools, police stations, universities. It even won awards. I got hundreds of letters and emails. My granddaughter taught me to use a computer at 72. People said my story gave them courage to speak up, to seek help. One letter from an 85-year-old woman broke me open. Her handwriting wobbled as she wrote, "I never told anyone what my stepfather did when I was 12. I carried it 73 years thinking I'd die with it. After your story, I told my daughter. It was like lifting a piano off my back." I cried reading that, realizing how silence traps us, how we think we're protecting ourselves when we're really feeding the dark. Now, at 76, rocking on my Cincinnati porch, watching cars zip down a street so different from that Kentucky dirt road, I see my story for what it is. It's not just pain and survival. It's about truth, even when it cuts. It's about breaking the silence that shields abusers and cages victims. Kids are still out there, living in homes that should be safe, but feel like prisons. If you're one of them, hear me. It's not your fault. You deserve love, safety, a voice. Keep reaching out until someone listens. And if you're an adult carrying a secret like mine, it's never too late to start healing. Your story could be the light that guides someone else out of the dark. Now, creeping up on 80, I feel the past tapping my shoulder, more vivid than ever. Time doesn't blur those memories. It sharpens them, like distilling a lifetime into a single bittersweet shot. My grandkids often ask how I got through it all. Truth is, you don't get over trauma like mine. You learn to carry it, like a tree growing around a barbed wire fence, the scars there woven into your roots, but you keep growing. At 65, I did something I never thought I would. I went back to Willow Creek. The town had changed so much it felt like a stranger's home. Dirt roads were paved, a shiny new supermarket stood where the old feed store used to be, and even the creek where Tommy and I splashed as kids was tamed into a concrete channel. Our old house, gone. In its place was a cheery bakery with sidewalk tables. I sat there, right where Mum was buried in that hasty grave, where my childhood shattered on a rainy night. A young waiter brought me coffee, hot and sweet. I sipped it slowly, letting the warmth chase away the chill those memories always bring. "You from around here?" he asked, catching my far-off stare. "A long time ago," I said, and left it at that. What could I say? To him, it was just his dad's bakery. The ghosts were mine alone. That trip, I visited the town cemetery too. After the documentary Voices of Silence spread my story, the town council had Mum's body moved to a proper grave. I brought red carnations, like the ones she grew on our porch. Standing there, I told her about my kids, my grandkids, the life I'd built despite it all. "You'd be proud, Mum," I whispered before walking away. That visit closed a door I'd left cracked open for decades. I haven't gone back since, and I don't plan to. Some chapters need an end to let you keep moving. At 70, I lost Tommy, my brother, my partner in surviving that nightmare. Alzheimer's stole him slowly, erasing his memories piece by piece. Near the end, he didn't know me. "Mum, I'm scared," he'd say, eyes wide, lost in our old Kentucky house. "Dad's yelling again." It broke my heart, knowing he was trapped in a past I'd fought so hard to escape. His death left a quiet ache, like I'd lost the last person who could say, "Yes, that happened. It wasn't a dream." Aunt Maggie was gone by then too, and Jim years before. The people who held me up were leaving, passing the torch to keep going, to share what I'd learned. After Tommy's death, I started writing my memoirs. Not for a bookstore shelf, but for my grandkids and their kids someday. I wanted them to know who their grandma was, where her strength came from. Putting those words on paper was like laying stones on a grave, sealing a wound that had bled for too long. When I finished, I gave copies to Emily and Mark. Emily cried, clutching hers. Mark held the envelope tight, finally saying, "Thank you for trusting us, Mum. We'll keep this safe." Their respect for my story felt like a gift I didn't know I needed. When the pandemic hit in 2020, locking us all in fear and isolation, I found an odd strength. While others struggled with the confinement, I'd already faced worse prisons, ones built of fear and silence. I leaned on that, hosting video calls with my grandkids. Yep, I learned Zoom at 74, telling stories to my great-grandkids, even starting an online prayer group with church friends. My age, which some saw as a weakness, was my secret weapon. I'd survived too much for a virus to break me. "Grandma's indestructible," my grandson Peter teased on a call. I laughed, but inside I thought, not quite, kid. I've been broken plenty, but I learned to piece myself back together, stronger where the cracks meet. Recently, Emily asked me to speak at her school during a training for teachers on spotting child abuse. I hesitated. I'm too old for this, but I said yes. Sitting in front of those young, eager teachers, I told my story again. The rain pounding that night, the sickening thud of the pestle, Dad's hand stealing my innocence, and the truth I used to fight back. I shared the messy work of healing, therapy, forgiveness that comes in fits and starts. When I finished, a young teacher, eyes wet, raised her hand. "How do you keep from turning bitter?" I paused, surprised. After a beat, I said, "It's a choice you make every morning. Do I let the past define me, or do I use it to build something better?" Some days bitterness was tempting, but I realized hating would let my father keep hurting me, even from the grave. I couldn't give him that power. At 76, sitting on my porch watching Cincinnati hum by, I know my future's shorter than my past. That doesn't scare me much. I've lived fully, loved deeply, hurt plenty, and come out the other side. My life's been a winding road, some stretches so dark I could barely see, others lit with a joy only survivors know. If I could talk to that 9-year-old girl hiding in the closet, I'd tell her, "Hold on, little one, the path's rough, but you'll make it." One day, you'll be an old lady on a porch, surrounded by love, telling your story to help others through their storms, and somehow it'll all mean something. If my story's stirred something in you, please share it. Pass it on to someone who needs hope, who needs to know they're not alone. Hit that like button to spread this message further. Maybe it'll reach a kid or an adult carrying a silent burden. Subscribe to our channel for more stories of survival and faith, updated daily. And check out the link in the description to join our WhatsApp community, where we share stories and words of hope before they hit the channel. It's a place to find support, to know you're not walking alone, because that's what saves us, knowing others have crossed the same dark valleys and found their way back to